Hello, everybody. I'm back. This is Elisha Royal, and you are watching cEDH Unhinged. Today, we are going to continue our Urza deck building, our extended video primer, our extended conversation about how to update your deck and adjust for changing conditions. We are going to continue that process today. Yesterday, you will have noticed I did not upload a video. I generally upload videos every day, or at least that's the goal. Why didn't I do that? Why am I adjusting that goal? Well, I need to be able to do things without you guys watching over my shoulder. I thought that I could just put you guys on my back and then have you watch the process and explain it along the way. And I can do that. But what I found is that slows me down a lot. So what I did yesterday was worked just as hard as I always do at putting out this kind of content for you guys and making sure that this process of updating Urza for modern times is going smoothly. I did that, but what it looked like was instead goldfishing on my own rapidly, putting the cards out and stuff like that. It's a lot easier for me to adjust and see what the deck is doing if I'm not narrating every card. And I don't think it's very entertaining if you guys to just like watch me flip cards around. If you want me to do that, cool, but I want to keep the content up to a certain standard for you guys. And if that means uploading every other day while I'm figuring things out and then explaining things afterwards to you, I'm going to do that. So what did I figure out yesterday? Well, we needed to incorporate more control elements. I got a game in with the list that I left off with last time. So the exact list that I went through card by card and then justified each one, the one that included all the 0-drop artifact creatures, I played against some shredders in the cEDH Discord for the Portland, Oregon area, including the Tazri that was top fouring. I can't remember the other guys, but that was the notable person there. But anyways, that ended in a draw. But what I noticed was that if I had just a couple of more pieces, I might have been able to turn the corner. Sorry about that. So what we're going to do is show what I came up with in the meantime. And what that looks like is basically the same thing, with the goal being a general game plan as follows. I should have pulled this up beforehand, but I'm going to go over just a couple of things that are answered by myself on the Urza Discord. Forgive me, I'm going to sit down for this. And for that, I will just lower our... Yeah, I didn't know that it could be lowered this much and heightened this much. I missed that last little piece. Okay, so we're going to go over some questions and answers that I got over on the Urza Discord. I have it linked over in the description. If you want to see this stuff for yourself and ask questions, this is where you're going to see it and where you're going to get my answers from. So I had somebody ask, BOISEI Boise, how does Crystal Skull Isu Spyglass perform? I think that 3 effects are more than enough, but I don't play your list, so just humble opinion. Cool. So I said Isu goes hard. I like that it allows me to play legendary lands that it can be fetched by Moonsilver Key. It also is an artifact as opposed to some other feature side enablers, which I enjoy. 4 CMC is really reasonable for the amount of cards if you're running 45 artifacts or so, which we are. General game plan. This is the important part that I wanted to go over because prefacing what we're doing before we go over the cards is really important. And I summed it up okay here. So turn 1, you want to shut down the grave, deploy mana, hold 1 CMC interaction, or SnapBack, which is our 1 free card in the deck. And what that means is basically you're going to try and shut down just the easy turn 1, turn 2, sneak through wins. And we can do that with having basically 1 piece of interaction. Generally, it can be a rapid, a Pondrify, it can be a bounce spell with 1 mana open. It can be a Tormod script. It can be a Soul Guide Lantern. We're going to get something on the board. We can get a Spell Guide on there with an Ancient Tomb or something like that. We're going to get something on the board that makes it so that we have a presence if something pops off. Okay, so we have turn 2, play the Protect Urza cards. And so what I'm talking about there is we're going to get our Conflail down for our combo protection, or our Protect Urza cards. That's going to be the Nurok Stealth Suit. We're talking about the Swiftfire Boots. We've got the Lightning Greaves or the aforementioned Spell Scatter. We're going to get one of those things down. Or we're going to have maybe a bounce spell in order to get him back to our hand. Something like that. You know, Chain is used that way. Sometimes it's really annoying, but sometimes you tap out your Mana Vault or something like that in order to get Urza on the board, and getting that mana together again makes it, it just makes it more feasible to just chain him back to your hand, which really sucks. But we're trying to protect our Urza again because we don't have those counter spells. We're working around that. But these cards again can be stormed off at the top and have other value to them. So that's why we're going to play them. Turn 2, play the Protect Urza cards. Turn 3, we're going to cast Urza. You know, and Of course, these are general game plans. If you have other cards and synergies and stuff like that, we should be putting those out, of course. But again, turn 1, shut down graveyard, hold up some stuff to play your mana. Turn 2, we're going to play the Protect Urza cards, or just kind of like a prep turn while also holding up something like that. We should still have a board state card that's messing up their breach lines or something like that. Or maybe the Torpor Orb, making sure that their Thoracle lines are messed up. Just have a presence, funnel them into one place so that the rest of the other two players can, stop the win attempt at the other. At least just do something. So a turn 2 play the Protect Urza cards, along with anything else that makes sense. Hit your land drop, hopefully. Mulligans, we should be keeping 2 lands. Pretty much keep 2 lands. Turn 3, cast Urza, get all the tangential stuff, try and get him protected, and then chill. Because again, turn 3, people are going to pop off. They're going to see Urza on the board. They're going to know something's coming up. And this is where you should basically be like, and it's, a general game plan. You should be like, literally maybe politicking with the table. Can I cast Urza without this getting blown up? Like, are you guys going to freak out? Like, um, try and get them on the board without it being as obvious of a problem as it is. Good luck with that. And then if you make it back to turn 4, my goodness, what you're looking at is basically a future sight and a win attempt. And then turn 5, if you get shut down there, you should be able to swing again. Or it's just a prep turn, and then turn 6, you should basically be swinging every turn after that, but then you're talking late game, and that's where we've adjusted the list in order to account for us being present in late game, and being able to make it that far, because games are just lasting that long. But again, turn 1, be able to just funnel them into some kind of win con bottleneck, because everybody's using either Breach or Thoracle. Not too many things that can stop Thoracle unless we're running things like Stifle or Counterspell. So we're dependent on a Torpor Orb, or depending on the other players in order to stop that combo, and then focusing on the other thing that we can control with our artifact board state, which is the graveyard. So we are going to spit out something graveyard oriented, hopefully turn 1, or get a Spell Skite, or if you just have crazy mana, that's the kind of hand that you have. And so we're going to keep that, and that's basically the only exception for a game plan that doesn't kind of go this way. Turn 2, we're going to get something that's going to make sure that our turn 3 and 4 are going well, and then hold up again that 1 mana CMC spell. Just get and this is and honestly, most of the time that's all you need. You need to just contribute your one thing. And that's it. Most of the time, that's enough. And sometimes you don't even have to, which is really cool, because people are, after a while, expecting you not to with this list. Turn 3, yeah, we're just going to try and put the big guy on the board and pray that we get to turn 4 without somebody just sliding through this huge gap on turn 3 that tends to exist. Or threat assessing Urza properly and getting them off of the table, which is why we are trying to turn 2 protect Urza. That's the name of the game, turn 2. And then turn 4, we're going for that win attempt. Get a future sight effect down, tutor for 1, get it down, and season to taste, basically, adjust for whatever's going on in the gameplay. That's what we're doing. So moving over to the cards, do I need to do an entire 100 card rundown? Probably, because the changes are so drastic. And we'll just do that. So, yeah, let's swap over to the overhead cam, and we'll just do the same thing we did last time. We're going to go over all the cards, and I'll give you the justification for why particular ones have been added. Do I have any other news for you? Yeah, I haven't gotten to the finesse of the channel where I have like intros and outros and begging you to do things for me. But the one thing I would ask is just like and subscribe and share this. If you have Urza people or people that are getting into the cEDH scene and haven't picked out a deck yet, send them my way, because the thing is, especially for those people that haven't chosen a deck yet, there are not many people that are going to be committed down a particular path for a long time like this, and it's going to be a channel that hopefully you can see with the small backlog of content that we have, that you can depend on going into the future to pick up some content on how at least to play this one deck. Things that are coming up, that is a note that I wanted to get to. Once we've kind of figured out this list and we've got it more or less pinned down to just a couple of swaps, right? Then what we're going to move to is threat assessing every meta deck from the perspective of using this list. And the thing is, we're going to do that after the ban announcement coming at the end of April. So the process of tuning this list, is kind of on a clock, right? And then we have big things coming up because that ban announcement comes up, which will, one, mess with this list, but hopefully the general idea still stays viable, right? Which I think it will. I think that we have enough card depth that the general idea of storming off is not going to go away. So they're going to be all right there. The printing of Crystal Skull Isu Spyglass and then the Fortune Teller's Talent back-to-back, that's really what made this list able to pop. And then you also add the Glaring Flesh Raker, which just came about, as well as the Fringe of Gadgeteer, and you're just like, okay, well, they just made this whole new Urza thing viable, and like they're coming out in a couple of months. They come out so fast with these cards that this list is only going to become spicier and spicier because we just see them putting cards out that are worth trying out. At least we have the Repurposing Bay in here from Aether Drift, and we also have the Diversion Unit, which is making an appearance here, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. I think that's going to be one of those keep your eye on cards that I think is going to overperform. I think that's one of those that is going to really earn its keep, even though it comes from a skeptical. Every slot is competitive, right? And so you're always skeptical about a new card that you got to slot in there and see if it has legs. But I think that one is one I'm willing to gamble on, because how often do we have a Malevolent Hermit on there where the most that you do with it is just use that blue and use it as a counter spell, right? But at least this one, I guess we'll talk about it now. This one, Divergent Unit, it comes out and it's an artifact, which, we can cast off the top with our top deck of casters, and also has cast trigger effects, which we enjoy. It's not as effective because it is straight up just instants or sorceries. It's not non-creature, so it is more narrow. I will say that is a downside, but being able to tap for mana, you got me there. Like, come on, you got me right there. It's an artifact. You can tap it for mana. That's what we're doing here. Sorry. So moving on to our overhead cam, we will just go down the list. We'll skip the Diversion Unit, I suppose. We'll just have a couple of words there. Keep an eye out for me, please, if you have people getting into the cEDH scene that might be interested in learning a storm-oriented Urza. Don't be like, oh, hey, you want to learn a new stacks deck? That's not necessarily what we're doing, at least not right now. So please at least do a good job of letting them know that we're not following the original recipe. And yeah, let's get moving. Good to see you. And yeah, say hi to Leroy. That little man. All right, let's switch on to the overhead cam. Oh, last note, Mystery Booster 2. Okay, so we had a snow day. And the Mystery Booster 2 was just too enticing. It was sitting there, and I was thinking about picking up some cards that happened to be within it. And I'm like, it'd be really lame if I end up opening these over time and then being like, oh, hey, there's that card that I ended up getting. Because, of course, we have the Urza with the Future Sight border, right? And there's a lot of cards in here that have that Future Sight border as well. And so I wanted to make sure that I wasn't over purchasing. Anyways, we good news, pulled a foil Tormod's Crypt, which is pretty cool. I like that card a lot. It overperforms in this deck, which it's always a huge card in whatever Urza list you're putting it in, but in this list particular, I love storming right into it. And again, that early presence with not putting any mana into it, into one of the primary bottlenecks for the win condition of the day, Breach, which is, so it's like if you look at the tree, you're basically looking at Thoracle, which is, let's put it at like 65% of the wins, and then you've got the other, what is that, left over 35% over here, which is Breach. I think that's pretty representative, and so hopefully the other players, the other two, can handle that Thoracle thing, and then once we get into Breach territory, it's like you've got that covered. So that's pretty sweet. Let's move on over to the overhead cam and get rolling. Okay. My heating system is on, so hopefully it's not too loud for you. But we are going to do just a quick deck evaluation for Urza Lord High Artificer, a storm-oriented variant. Can I get him in frame without him being in the way? You know what? Let's just put him up here. It looks right. Okay, so we're going to start off with Hydroelectric Specimen. The only drawback to this card, other than a little bit of health, and this being an Aetherflux build, which hasn't ever bit me yet, not having that much life and wanting to manually storm off, and we'll talk about that later. But that hasn't been a huge drawback. The only other drawback is that it's a nombo because it uses an ETB effect with our Torpor Orb. Codex Shredder. So Codex is really nice because it's a 1-cost artifact that we can get out and turn 1, hopefully shut down some of those top deck tutors. It's really funny to be able to have that on the field. People forget what it does. They're not seeing it very often. They top deck tutor. They got that, Vamp Tutor primed card, and you just mill that thing away. It feels real good. And then the other thing that we're using it for is our recursion. So if we are using our game-winning Aetherflux at the very end, after we dropped our Conflail and our Defense Grid and our Valley Flood Collar so we can play everything at flash speed, and we're doing the thing, if somebody finds a way to, channel a this and a that and a, you know how this game is. Codex Shredder can get our card back to our hand because we don't run any looping effects either. We are hoping that we don't have to run subpar cards and that we can just win with normal means, not having to account for weird stuff like that. So anyway, Codex Shredder, really just a banger of a card, which obviously goes well with our deck because if we are top deck casting and then we run into something that we really don't like, Codex Shredder also gets that off the top. All around banger in this list. Relic of Progenitus, shout out to Nick for suggesting this just yesterday. It made it into the list because we are looking at other cards that do a couple of things. The first one is be an artifact. The second thing is cost 1. And the third thing, I'm thinking there's just a lot more than just 3 things. Basically, what we want are artifacts that hate on the graveyard or have some other effect, like Aether Spellbomb that bounces things, that also is able to draw a card and be a top deck manipulator when we are storming off. So that fits all of those functions. It can be cast turn 1, and then hopefully we got another mana if we have to in order to activate it, or we can, it's target player moves a card in his or her graveyard from the game. So it's one of those cards where it's like it's the worst card of its type that's still good enough to run. You know what I'm saying? But again, because it has that effect to be able to hate on the graveyard, it's relatively cheap, and then it can also top deck manipulate. It makes the cut. Rapid Hybridization, what a banger of a card. Honestly, blue should not be able to just 1 mana zap creature. That's pretty wild. 3/3 green frog lizard, who cares in cEDH? Instant speed, rapid hybridization. Like, what more can you say about this card? Just a really good one. And it's just insane that they gave us 2 of them with Pondrify. Like, who thought that was a good idea? Who did? Because when you're thinking about, like, okay, I just need to get rid of a creature, just let me look around for a quick tool. The only other thing that you have is, you think about Path to Exile, it gives them a land. Like, anyway, who cares if it's an exile? It gives them a land. Emergent Zone, banger of a card. We like that colorless in order to get our Glaring Fleshraker on the field. And when the turn where everybody sacks their E-Zone is a scary one, you should be taking note when it's on the field. I feel like it sneaks up on a lot of people. It snuck up on me. In that game that I was talking about in the first part of the video, there was a turn where everybody just sacks their E-Zone, and we politic to draw because somebody has a win on the stack, and then another person was able to present one, and then that Tazzer, is that how you say it? Player, that top forward in that SCG Con tournament had enough interaction to be like, okay, we're just gonna not king make anybody and politic a draw here because we're not. It's at the end of the timer anyway. And then I'm over there with 1 chain, like, a vapor, basically, like whatever I can point this at to get the draw. If that matters at all, which it probably didn't, I will do that. So anyways, that's how that went on. Scary. Anything to get that Urza out, and generally it's not that big of a deal, right? Generally it's not that big of a deal to start turn 1 with a tap land like that, or turn 2 put out a tap land. I think I'm a big fan of Scary. I just am. It's a great card. Anything to get ahead in those critical turns, 2 and 3, just get that extra mana. 1 as well, I guess that should count as a critical turn, but 1's really just a setup. Swiftfoot Boots, we run this because anything to protect Urza is great. And then we also have our critical cards when we're comboing off Battered Golem, Magus of the Future, Valley Flood Caller. Anything that we need to make sure doesn't die should get a pair of boots. And it's pretty value filled in this deck because when it makes sense in other decks, it more so makes sense in Urza if it's an equipment card in particular because we can tap them and they still do what they're doing. So, anyways, it's like a 2-mana rock. So just like imagine like just later in the game after you have Urza, you find an Arcane Signet. It's like every single time you see Arcane Signet after you have Urza, you're upset because it could be anything like a Swifties. Island. Hope of Girapur. Let's talk about that. It's a legend, which I like. Because I don't run that many copy effects, and so I'm not really worried about that, and it's nice to have those for no reason. Okay, so Hope of Girapur. Any way to just get that out turn 1 and then have it be a lurker for anybody that's threatening to go off turn 2 is really underrated because basically it's just like, okay, turn 1 I'm going to drop the Hope, and then somebody deploys hard, and then turn 2, or somebody deploys hard, and then you drop the Hope, anticipating a turn 2 pop up. Well, I guess it's really they get the turn 2 because of the Summoning Sickness, so it's really turn 3 that this. Yeah, so turn 1 I play it. They deploy either before or after, doesn't matter. They get their turn 2, and I'm still summoning sick, and then I can attack, and then turn 3, I guess, which is the big slot these days, it comes into effect. So, yeah, I guess that's why it's a good idea for me to go over this list as well, just out loud, because it's kind of like rubber ducky theory, where I can find, things about that as I'm trying to explain it, when I otherwise would just kind of brush over the card and be like, okay, that made the list, that's a good one, and get caught up in other ways of thinking about the cards. Sacking it, not a big deal. We can still do. It's not a tap and sack. That's the big deal. It can be tapped and then sacked. I mean, obviously the card wouldn't make that much sense if you had to tap it, but I'm saying if. Anyways, so until your next turn, target player who is dealt combat damage by Hope can't cast non-creature spells. So it can be used in order to silence. For your own going off. That's the first thing that comes to mind a lot of the time when people look into this, but I really like it as just a piece of interaction where we can see a person that's going off and then just kind of like shut them down preemptively for not that much mana. Anyways, Inventor's Fair. I really enjoy the idea of being able to have Urza on board and then not spinning Urza for 5 mana if I'm not getting where I need to go, but instead having an Inventor's Fair able to, for the same amount of mana, sack itself and go get something I need. Into the Flood Maw, 1 mana removal. Really good in this list because I need the interaction. Gifting the fish, I find, is actually a thing that people forget about. I feel like they just target. They're like, I'm gonna cast Into the Flood Maw targeting your Pithing Needle, and like nobody gets the fish, and so we should make sure that happens more often. Do justice to the fish. There should be more fish tokens around. When have you seen the 1/1 blue fish creature token? Did they make one? I'm sure they did. Posty Island, Scalding Tarn. Okay, so let's talk about these top deck manipulator lands. They are just such a banger in this list. I only run 5 islands, and it's pretty often actually that at some point in the game we'll be like, oh my goodness, I got 4 islands. Like I can't, I've never actually had the scenario where I failed to find off a Scalding Tarn because I had all my islands already, or whatever scenario had happened. But the point is that the top deck manipulation quality is fantastic. So let's say we cast our Magus of the Future, we haven't hit our land drop yet for turn, and then and we have 1 leftover mana or something like that. It just like it makes that land on the top just like not a problem. We can play that Scalding Tarn, and then again we will have a mana at some point because it'll turn into an island, and then we have our 1 other mana, so we're out 2, and then top deck casting with a top deck manipulator. That's a really great position to be in if you want to win with this deck. So it's just like it turns those oh man, I hope my top deck caster goes somewhere. Scenarios into something much more. It's than just having a non top deck manipulating land on the top. It just is a great mechanic to have in this list. Prized statue. We need to get Urza out early, and then again, as opposed to something like an arcane signet or a Felwar stone, which are great. They're cards that are still in here because we needed, like I said, to get Urza out there. But they again can be way more utility later while still doing the most essential job of ramping into Urza specifically, even though this only does it temporarily. Later in the game, I can cast and it at least goes neutral, given no other creation or cost detracting effects. It can at least go even because it creates another artifact. That's pretty cool. And then also, if we're sacking with Transmute, we're sacking with our reshape, it's really nice to be able to get that treasure token back. And then I've also found that when you take a culling ritual right to the face, it's pretty nice that you get that treasure as at least the tiniest consolation prize. Ancient Tomb, what a banger of a card. It was so overlooked, right? I mean, it was appreciated, but now that we are living in an era of no Mana Crypt and no Jeweled Lotus, and this might sound really outdated in like a month, Ancient Tomb is a banger, and you will be appreciated more now, even if those other cards come back. Ponder. We need top deck manipulation. I had more top deck manipulators, specifically cantrips, in here. And Brainstorm I didn't like because it's like if I don't want the hand, if I don't, because I don't have anything in my hand. So, anyways, I like the scry effect. So, Ponder. Um, Makes it even though it doesn't scry. Man, okay, let's read this. Look at the top three cards of your library, put them back in any order. You may shuffle and then draw a card. I think I liked it because I could basically just look at those top three and then shuffle away. And most of the time, I'll have like two cards that are castable and one that isn't, and I can just put that on the top and then draw it, right? And then have that available. If it's like a Pongify and I'm oh no, that doesn't make sense either because it would. I'm thinking about like the artifact based casters. Ponder, the art's dope. Honestly, am I gonna lie to you? We need top deck manipulators, and the art's dope. And most of those cantrips are pretty close in function anyway. I know that I didn't like Brainstorm because of me not having any cards in my hand, anyways. And then this was pretty cool because I could shuffle. And then I like the scries, so preordained, I do miss that. Psych Rift. So this one was an ad because that overload Psych Rift effect, and then also like 2 mana interaction feels really bad. Like I just don't really like it. And then but we need kind of like a big boy overload effect, and then we also need to be able to dig ourselves out of holes that we find ourselves in if they hit us with a Graph Digger's Cage or a Dranith Magistrate. And I mean, I guess we have a lot of creature removal. I'm thinking about um, other board state problems that we would have to remove with a Psych Rift or a Bounce specifically. I'm sure there are plenty, but Graph Diggers is the one that comes to mind. Paradoxical Outcome. Suggestion from one of the dudes on our Urza Discord. Let me see if I can give him a proper shout out. The Benny B, that's right. Okay, so he's like, I'm surprised you're not running this. It's one of the best cards in my deck. And I'm like, well, I'm trying to avoid 3 and 4 costs, but absolutely correct that once you have a board state and then you put this thing out, or you play this thing, oh my goodness, it goes hard because you end up getting mana from the cards generally. Because I don't know, you get a significant portion of the mana back if you have your basalt or your mana positive rocks, right? You've got a lot of mana positive rocks, and being able to use them and then take them back and then use them again and then get cards and then have more mana positive rocks in those cards. Like it's a real good one. Bittersweet feeling about Arcane Signet. I don't like storming into it, but early game you got to eat your like it's the equivalent of eating your vegetables, right? In ramp, like I can run 25 lands, but you'd better have a Felwar. You'd better have an Arcane Signet diversion unit. So, vegetables. Just had a conversation about it. We got to be able to protect our combos. We got to be able to protect our Urza. There's only so many options to do that. This isn't actually that bad value wise for us because we can tap it for mana. Um, so we'll take it. We'll use it. We'll make sure that it gets tested thoroughly. But after seeing the performance of Malevolent Hermit, I have high hopes for this card. It's one of those things that, again, I think is going to overperform. We talked about that before, so I'll leave it at that. Tormod's Crypt, look at that. We just pulled that yesterday. I should have had it on cam for you guys, but honestly, that's one of those things that I was like, when I was doing, I was like, this is for me. This is for me. And honestly, I was sitting there with my wife. I said out loud, I'm like, this is just for me and you, but let's be honest. And she's not going to watch this, so it was just for me. It was just for me. Sacrifice Tormod's Crypt, exile target player's graveyard with swag. With yeah, that's a good deal right there. Gemstone Caverns, broken card. Broken card. We don't really need to say much more than that. Broken card. Mana Vault. Do we say anything about Mana Vault? I think that we should just give it its props too. I think it's one of those cards that, again, as soon as the Jeweled Lotus and the Mana Crypt went out, it was like, oh my goodness, what's the best card that I could turn one? Mana Vault. What's the best like land, like a Mana Vault Ancient Tomb combo? Make somebody cry with a One Ring drop if you're a normal deck, not us. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool to me. Mana Vault, it's just the going up to, like, think about this. Soul Ring goes mana positive 1 and seems really strong turn 1, you know what I'm saying? Mana Vault, I mean, you pay 1 and then you untap next turn, drop another land, and you're looking at 5 mana. Like, you want to talk about a ban worthy card. Let's not say that too loud. Lotus Petal, Sensei's winning top. Okay, should we do Lotus Petal some justice? Yeah. So anything to get early game mana, we've found is just like, isn't it weird how after the bans, like, things almost got faster, and then we entered mid-range grind, and now we're kind of like working our way between the two. It is what it is. We haven't actually oriented ourselves towards like a late game plan, right? We haven't seen those. I haven't found any of those decks that come around. I usually just see like the mid-range grinders in the early game, and then like the late game guys haven't like made a deck list yet, I guess. I don't know, but Lotus Petal became even more valuable. Sensei's top, really good. Draw your deck with it, tap it for mana, adjust your top deck, get lands off of the top. Like, it's just it's a house of a card. Again, a gift from my buddy. Thank you. Great card. I'm trying to think about like more things that I could say about it that aren't just totally obvious about it, but just looking at it, it's like, it took me a minute to realize why it was broken as like a new Magic player when I first saw it, however long ago. And it's one of those cards that over time you appreciate even more. And doesn't it just fit the flavor of the card? Like, it's one of those things where it's such a flavor win and a mechanic win, and the combination of those, and just like, and it gets better over time. Sensei's Divining Top is an S tier Magic card. Straight up. Power Artifact. I'm skeptical about you because you have one function and you get in the way a lot. I'm storming off the top and I run into a Power Artifact, and I don't have a Basalt and I don't have a Grim Monolith. But guess what? You're one of the most compact winning combos that we have. We drop a Grim Monolith and we get the Power Artifact, and people forget that I was even doing that thing. People forget that, oh, yeah, that's actually, Urza does win that way. So we're going to keep you. Hermit, we actually have been talking about you quite a bit because of the diversion unit. But again, we really like that you have non-creature spells, so we can hit our buddy's Planeswalker when it's coming out for 1 mana. And that's kind of funny. And then the Disturb. We need anything that protects our combos. And it's pretty wild that we can just whip out something that protects all of our greatest combo pieces. every single time. Can't be countered. That's pretty cool. It only does so much for protecting things that are on the board and getting there. And granted, it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana to get that effect. And I've had a lot of words to say about Malevolent Hermit, but any port in a storm, I've been hearing that a lot lately. We need anything that is a counterspell, anything that protects our combos, because we're not running counterspells, and we need that ability for Hermit to be able to just cast off the top at any time. Rings of Bright Hearth, you only have one purpose, right? No, you can do a couple of things, and I like that. The first thing that you do is be tutorable. Straight up. You are just tutorable, and we only run artifact tutors, and that's what we're here for. So guess what? If I have my Basalt, guess what I'm tutoring for? I'm looking for rings, and there's been just a lot of games where you get the AB combo, or you're storming off the top. You don't have your infinite whatever yet. You don't have your this or that, and you just get that rings. Basalt combo going. Defense Grid. You've been looking at this for a minute. It is a masterpiece. It was a Christmas present from my wife, and it is, again, an any port in a storm card where we need to protect our combo. So just whip that thing out there. Defense Grid. What are you going to do? I'm about to storm off in your face and tap this thing for mana, too. It's pretty funny. Psi, Master Thopterus. Isn't it kind of cool where you can just be like, all right, I have my Psi, Master Thopterus on the board, and then I'm going to top deck this Defense Grid. I already have my whatever top deck caster in hand, and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to play the top deck caster for 5. And then people are looking at it. No, I'm not doing that first. I'm going to play Defense Grid first. That's what I'm doing. I'm playing Defense Grid, and then I'm going to tap it for a mana too, and then I'm going to put down the top deck caster, and then I'm going to tap that Thopter that was created off the Psi with that Defense Grid cast. And we're just going to win the game after that, because it doesn't matter what top deck caster it was. We have a Defense Grid, right? Boop, doop, 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 doop. Did that make sense? Seagate Restoration. House of a card. I almost never use this. And it might actually be better to just put an island in. But oh, well, we can pitch it to SnapBack. I don't know. I guess worst case, if we've already hit our land drop, and we have 7 mana, and we're top deck casting, we can use that. I mean, whatever. Goldman. What to say about you? Same thing, just no sack effect. The worst of your category, while still worth running. That's just what it is, we can't all be top tier in our category. Some of us have to be the Dodge Durango, of our world. Aether Spellbomb. This is becoming more relevant than ever. Sacrifice Aether Spellbomb and draw a card. Storm off the top, get a Thopter, and then draw a card. Sounds good to me. Tap it for mana. Or, again, have a little bit of interaction on the board. It's really funny what happens when people can see that their stuff can just be returned. Pithing Needle. What a house. It's a homing missile aimed at Thrasios. It is just a bunker, but it's flying in, aimed at Thrasios. That seems to be the case these days. Sorry. Yeah, we don't need to talk too much about it. Well, maybe we should, because really how people are winning right now are activated abilities or dumping a whole bunch of infinite mana into something, or Oracle or Breach, right? Okay, that's a lot. That's a lot more things than Pithing Needle can deal with. But my point is that if you look at the list of commanders, it feels really bad if if somebody Pithing Needles Urza, I might just cry. Like, you're waiting for one of your bounce spells. I might just cry, quit, scoop, rage, flip the table, go home, throw my cards in a river. No, I'm not going to do that. But my point is that Pithing Needle is such a critical hit of a card where, again, I had that game that I played yesterday, and I had a turn where I reshaped something into this Pithing Needle because there was a Thrasios Tymna player that had infinite mana presented, and was going to cast the Thrasios and win the game. And that was my answer. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to let the table know. I'm going to put a reshape on the stack. I'm going to go for this Pithing Needle, everybody. So it's in your best interest to protect it. And nobody threw anything at it. It made it through. But the other guys would have fought for it because, again, Pithing Needle shuts down that Thrasios. There's a little bit of politicking that has to go in, just the tiniest bit, and you guys can do it. It mostly plays itself, but there's a little bit of politicking that has to be done with this deck that doesn't have any interaction. Because the interaction that, traditional counterspells is what I meant. Because traditional counterspells speak for themselves. They do the interacting, they do the politicking for them. Pithing Needle, I find doing a lot of politicking around, and having an incentive for other players to have your cards hit the field is something that you should communicate beforehand. Dole Amaroth, we don't actually untap anything anymore. What are we untapping with Dole Amaroth? I don't know. But it is castable because it's a legendary land off of Crystal Skull Isu Spyglass, and that is a synergy worth running for Fabricate. I like that you're only 3. I like that I can kind of play you in the early game and then get the payoff card later. When I have a protection card available. Also, a gift from a buddy. Thank you, Jesse. Very nice, original Mirrodin foil, looking good. Just a classic artifact tutor. Got to eat your vegetables. Banishing Knack. Win me a game. Come on, buddy. I will. I was gonna say I'll get a foil one if a Banishing Knack actually wins me a game one of these days, but it's mostly, sorry, I got the hiccups. It's just a piece of interaction, and that's made me respect it a lot. It's just a 1 mana piece of interaction, which is totally fine. Which is involving a lot of politics. Most of the time, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna tap for this blue, and I'm gonna Banishing Knack your card so that you can bounce his thing and we cannot lose. Does that sound good? A lot of the time, that's what's going on with this card. I'm using it, targeting somebody else's creature so that they can bounce the threat at the table that's being presented. That happens pretty often. It's effective at doing that. And again, it's 1 mana, so, pretty cool. And then Battered Golem and Valley Floodcaller, win conditions, boop, 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 boop. And then haste enablers with Lightning Greaves and Swift Fire Boots also being, supporting cards that make that combo more compact because it gets them haste, right? Allowing for that Battered Golem, Valley Floodcaller, Banishing Knack, Retraction, Helix kind of thing. And then, you have all of those in one ecosystem, and you're flipping off the top and seeing a lot of cards. You think it would lead to a win one of these days, but it doesn't, in my opinion, in my experience. But all of them individually have been performing, with the exception of Floodcaller. Like, every time I see it, I'm kind of annoyed. But again, I have that explanation over the top where I'm like, it makes so much sense. I just need to play more games and I'll see it. I don't know if what's happening is that other win lines are just so much more prevalent and easy to run into that it just never gets a moment to shine. I think that I'm suspecting that might be the case. But anyways, all those cards are going to stay. But Banishing Knack, again, really cool that they gave us another one of you with Retraction Helix. Flooded Strand, you're in the same category as a Scalding Tarn. Magus of the Future, 3 blue is hefty, hefty, hefty. Am I going to get copyright stricken for that? I feel like that's pretty close. But 5 to cast off the top, including lands, is sweet. And no, the revealing of whatever you have on the top, it just doesn't matter. It never matters. I've never cared. Nobody's ever cared. If anything, it makes you less threatening because people can see whatever garbage, well, I guess Ottawa is not garbage, but they can see that that's what's on top, and that's, very realistic because you'd have, your land drop for turn, and Chromox would never be on the top, or Fortune Teller's Talent. Who cares that you got a Fortune Teller's Talent right there because you're already a top deck casting? Let's see, how far are we going to have? Okay, Ottawa, let's talk about that for a second before we get too ahead of ourselves, making a point about Magus. But my point is, you'd have to go pretty far in here to find a card that you'd care that they knew you had on the top. The chances are slim. Ottawa, Channel Effects, my man. Channel Effects are just running the game right now. People have got to get their Stifle game going. That's the one thing that genuinely keeps me up at night and just hurts flavor-wise, and me, expressing myself in my deck and my cards. Like, I love Stifles. I love Stifles. Ooh, it gets me going. But Otawara, you're still going to ruin my day every once in a while because I don't run my Stifles, and I'm going to ruin somebody else's day with it because they don't run their Stifles. Chrome Mox, broken card. I can cast it when I have Urza, and it's just a little, they're the Mox Sapphire? Is that what it was called? Yeah, but beforehand, it's just a little bit of velocity. You know what Chrome Mox does. Fortune Teller's Talent. Let's talk about this because it's the unspoken hero of the deck. Make me a foil one, please, 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 please. Make me a foil one, foil one. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. 4 mana after that initial one cost, just play that turn one and then, be like, oh, yes or no. And then you dump 4 mana into it. And that condition, as long as you cast a spell this turn, everybody makes a big deal out of it. It doesn't, it's great. And then you tutor for your Sensei's Top after you have this upgraded, and then you just upgrade that one more time. Spells you cast from anywhere other than your hand cost 2 less to cast. That's infinite draw, ladies and gentlemen. That's what that is. Okay, where's my Sensei's Top? Where's my Sensei's Top? I should make this the thumbnail. I'm not gonna do it because my wife is home, but eventually I'll have the time to be like, Sensei's Top, Fortune Teller's Talent. So 2-card combo, get on top of it. Yeah, granted it's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana, fully upgraded, and then that. But my point, we're Urza. We make 8 mana. We make 8 mana. I shouldn't put those like right next to each other in the deck because then I'll shuffle up and there'll be like 3 cards away, and then I'll be like, oh geez, I didn't sufficiently shuffle. I don't know. I'm just kidding. I get weirded out, but I shuffle so thoroughly because the deck is we'll go on a tangent here. I shuffle so thoroughly because the deck is optimized in order to work in a random way. And a random way can be perfectly, distributed, stuff in somebody's mind. But no, a random way means that you have little clumps of stuff, and and sometimes you get clumps of stuff that you really want, and sometimes you get really clumps of stuff that you really don't want. And sometimes, and that's if you have a properly randomized deck, you'll be like, oh my goodness, I just got 6 lands in a row, and they'll be like, my deck isn't properly randomized. I'm like, no, if you got 6 lands in a row, your deck is properly randomized. If that happens to you every once in a while, that's a good sign that you're randomizing, I guess, because that's just a thing that happens. People think that the unusual things that happen is a sign that like they're not sufficiently shuffling or their deck hates them. It's like, no, the unusual things are to be expected. That is the nature of the singleton format, and how it works. Moonsnare Prototype, channel, underrated, winning the game regularly for me. I'm just kidding. It doesn't do that very often because it's normally on the field. It's in my hand to field. It's hand to field, kind of card because it only costs 1. But having that in my opening hand, costing blue, didn't really make me happy a lot of the time, to be honest, but it's been bugging me less with this particular build. However, having that 0 cost on the field or another 1 cost to play the next turn, basically being like, okay, Moonsnare, turn 1, and then drop another land, and then be like, Aether Spellbomb, and then tap my other land in a Moonsnare, drop a Spellskite. It's like, now you're rolling now. Polluted Delta, Island, Buckleberry Ferry. Why do we run Buckleberry Ferry? I get that question every once in a while. Boro Palace in the clouds. Why do we have you? It's a combination of this legendary status, allowing us to cast off of the Crystal Skull Isu Spyglass, as well as the ability to play a Buckleberry Ferry, tap for a blue, cast a Mana Vault, go to turn 2, not hit our land drop, tap for a blue, right? Tap our Mana Vault, use one of those floaters, send our Buckleberry Ferry back to hand, drop Buckleberry Ferry, tap for a blue, have 2 floating colorless, 2 blue, put Urza on the field, and pretend like we kept a good hand and didn't just miss our land drop. Mystic Remora, you are a house. You only cost 1 to storm off with on the top, and that's why you're here. We depend on other cards for card advantage, right? But Mystic Remora, you only cost 1, and you're just a house. You're like a stacks piece too. We don't really have a lot of cards that we can just draw while somebody's storming off that they'll care about. We've got our pieces. They're there. They do exist. Sorry, I gotta itch right where the mic is. Maybe the audio just changed on you. Maybe it's even better, and you're like, why don't you just hold it like that all the time? Because it requires me to hold it. That's why. Felwar, you are in the same category as Arcane Signet, except you are the same story, the worst in the category of viable cards. You're Durango in it. But even worse, because if I, am going turn 1 and I don't have a land to target, that's really lame. Sink into Stupor. People need to remember that you can also return target spell back to its owner's hand. That's cool. Return target spell or non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Have you ever sent somebody's Force of Will back to their hand in a 5-color deck where they just pitched a Swan Song and then they didn't have anything left? Have you ever sink into stupor somebody's force of negation when they just pitch their Flusterstorm? Have you done that? It feels good. It does. Vexing Bauble. You know, people are going to be like, oh my goodness, you run all these zero cost things. Okay, calm down. First off, we don't run that many zero cost things, right? It doesn't nombo that hard. And second, we can sack it. We can draw the card. It is way more often that it works like well into our favor. That happens way more often. Like if you're going second or something like that, sure that. But I mean, or first. Let's say you're going first. Let's just give it the full shebang. Um, Chrome Mox, Jeweled Amulet, Land, Vexing Bauble, and everybody just because suddenly all of their Jeweled Amulets and Chrome Moxes and Mox Opals and everything else that they like, their LEDs that they might play later, like just yeah, sorry bud, I Vexing Baubled turn 1, and that again is a critical hit to our deck too. If it hits the late game, then it's kind of annoying. But the thing is, let's say that we're storming off and we have the Vexing Bauble there as our protection. Who really cares if we cast it and it gets countered? It was just like a zero drop. It cost us zero. It goes top deck to graveyard, gets countered. Like, okay, it might even get us to cast trigger and get us a Thopter. So you know, don't be like, oh, it's a huge nombo. It's not. It's gonna be all right. Promise you. Messes with your opponents, and it's good. And again, that one sack draw card gets that land off the top so that we can continue our storm. Silent Gravestone. Oh my goodness. Cards in graveyards can't be the targets of spellers or abilities. Again, if we have a little bit of graveyard recursion that we got to do, we can bounce it back, we can sack it, we can do this, we can do that. But my point is that Silent Gravestone, just drop that turn one. All the Rogside players are just like, oh. All the Gitrog players are just like, oh. All the this or that Keurig players or whatever. I ran into a couple of those. Apparently, they're doing pretty good with the graveyard. They just go, oh. Yeah, Silent Gravestone. Cool card. Really like that. 1 mana. Counterbalance. We got a little bit of a top deck manipulation capability here. We also have not that many counter spells, so it's a little bit of protection when we're comboing off. It's like, oh my goodness, he's got a this or a that. There's a these on top. And all of our stuff is really low to the ground, between 0, 1, and 2 CMC most of the time. A couple of 3s, a couple of 4s, but most of the time it's within stopping interaction range. And sometimes that hits. But it is really cool to have that board state interaction that has more value the longer that the game is played, because every single spell that gets cast gets checked by that thing. And oh my goodness, Counterbalance is a combo stopper. Like if I'm trying to storm off and you have a counterbalance, it's really bad. So if you have a similar game plan or you're doing whatever, like nobody likes to see counterbalance. You just don't. Do I need to talk about it that much more? Probably not. But Prismatic Vista, you also make the cut because guess what? We have basics. We do. And you're a top deck manipulator. Thanks for being here. Everflowing Chalice. What you really are is a 2-cost rock. So you're like an Arcane Signet, you're like a Felwar Stone, but you are way better than them. Not because you make colored mana. You don't. You give me colorless mana in order to get my Glaring Fleshraker, and all my stuff is 40 artifacts anyway, so I don't really need that much blue mana except for the ones that I do have most of the time. But I can cast you off the top for 0 after I have Urza, which hopefully is turn 3. Again, turn 1, get our prep stuff, shut down a little bit of graveyard, have some interaction. Turn 2, so basically just don't lose. Turn 2, get our prep for Urza being there, get our Nurok Stealth Suit, get our whatever out there, our Spell Guide, or deploy a lot more mana, or get something going. And then turn 3, drop Urza, and then that Everflowing Chalice follows right afterward as a little Mox Sapphire, or something that you can storm off the top with, or it turn 2 gets dropped so that turn 3 you can get that Urza out there. So that's what we're doing with that Everflowing Chalice, right? You can do a couple of things. Reshape, win the game. Reshape that Everflowing Chalice right into a Sensei's Divining Top for me. Soul Ring. What a good one. What a good one. What a card. What a bannable, good-looking, decent card. Rhystic Study. You're controversial in this deck because sometimes casting off the top feels really bad to run into a Rhystic Study. We've talked about this in the past, but anything to have cards, Rhystic Study wins games. We see that all the time. It's just, you can't beat the long track record of Rhystic just winning games. Tezzeret, you are here to do a particular thing. That is to hit the board, lament, that you're not going to be here very long, sack, and then be a probably. Here's the debate: do I get Crystal Skull, Isu Spyglass, or a Mystic Forge? I think that the Mystic Forge wins. I think it's better because of the top deck manipulation. That's what I found. I do like that more. Snapback, anything to have interaction in hand. We run a peculiar list. We run an unusual list. And 2 mana to, that's the same thing as like rifting back somebody's creature. That's not terrible. But being able to exile a card from hand that we may or may not have. Basically what we're doing is like we can cast this off the top, we can storm into it, and it's like, okay, 2, whatever, I can send that back to hand. That doesn't set me that back much. That doesn't set me back that much. But early game, turn 1, when the Rogsai pops off and there's a this or a that, it's really nice to have Snapback. We don't have that many options. We don't run that many counterspells. So have a free something sounds nice, which also isn't bad to cast off of the top and has the function of, doing things that we like in order to get rid of Dranis to win. Like Snapback is an underrated card in general, but in this list, overperforms because we don't have anything else in its card type really, and it performs that essential function of just being a free piece of interaction. Soul Guide Lantern, what a house, because we can sacrifice you and draw a card, but we can also hit them with the graveyard turn 1. Turn 1 we can tap, put it on their graveyards down. That's what we're looking for. Graveyards down, turn 1, Tormod's Crypt, Soul Guide Lantern. That's what does it. The Relic of Progenitus, it doesn't do that. It costs 2 mana. But this does do that. Forensic Gadgeteer, you combo with Basalt, you create clues which allow me to draw the things off the top for me to be able to storm with, which also tap for mana. Like, what more do you really need to do? What more do you really need to do? It's the hidden commander, is what it's been referred to by friends of mine in the deck, because you play it and then suddenly every artifact you play creates a big old problem. A cost reduced, like tapping itself if you have Urza for mana and then sacking, just card draw. Every time you cast an artifact, that's just so good in this particular build. So if you're playing against this build and you see Forensic Gadgeteer, blow it off the face of the earth, you do not want to play against it. It's bad news for you. Bad news for you. See the side nod. Get my Mox Opal going. Get my Mox Opal going, please. And pump up my construct. Make it big. Academy Ruins. We need a little bit of recursion. Again, feels really nice to be like, oh, I can cast off of the top and I'm getting into whatever, and then here's the problem card, and somebody hits it, and I'm like, Academy Ruins, put it right back and cast it again. They're like, well, that sucked. Yeah, Academy Ruins, that's what that's for. Legendary Land, cast it off the top of Crystal Skull, Isu Spyglass. Disruptor Flute, really funny to just, like, people forget that it has the second effect. Spells with the chosen name cost 3 more to cast. Do you know how funny it is to be like Rogsai keeps first 7, and you're just like, oh no. Rogsai keeps second 7. Oh, okay, no. And then you Ancient Tomb into Disruptor Flute, and you're like, what am I going to do to stop this person? And you're just like, I just named Rog. Costs 3 more to cast Rog, bro. Most of the time, it'll be all right. Most of the time, it'll do it. It's backfired, and most of the time you should be more prudent. But who wants to pay 3 for Rog? And do they have better options? I don't know. Does it really always take that Rog cast in order to get it going? No, but sometimes, a lot of the time, I don't know. Maybe I just don't know enough about Rogsai, and I just sounded dumb. Sculptor. Win the game with your cost reduction ability in combination with the top deck caster and Sensei's Top. That's what you're there for. and you can be cast pretty early. You're the best in class. You're an artifact, so I can be casting you off the top. I can tap you for mana yourself, and you're a creature, not really super easy to counter. And then also, I mean, it can be removed, right? So that sucks. But and it has a good effect. Attraction Helix, we already talked about you. Nurok Stealth Suit. Stealth Suit. Nurok Stealth Suit. I've mentioned this card a couple of times now. Really cool. Fifth Dawn, one of those ones that doesn't have like the colored symbols. What this is for is making sure that our Urza survives. We need it. Urza is good for us, and protecting it is underrated. So let's cast it for 2, tap it, and then immediately pop out some Urza protection, right? Maybe we can cast it turn 2 and attach it turn 3 as per the game plan. Island, Misty Rainforest, Future Sight. So again, playing with it revealed, not that big of a deal. 3, pretty hefty. Same thing as Magus of the Future, but not a creature. So what is there really to say? There's the trade-off there. It's the creature versus non-creature debate. Do you want it to be more or less counterable? Doesn't really make a difference. To me, I view them basically the same. They're basically the same. Chain of Vapor, looking good. What do we want to say about Chain? We really like that we can basically chain our own thing back to hand off the top, our mana positive rock, and then play it again if we're casting off the top, right? So if we're top deck casting, run into Chain, we can send something back to hand. If we got our good old Battered Golem out there, it's really nice to be able to cast it again and then get a good tapper on top off them. So being able to just cast more artifacts is nice. It'll usually go mana positive, even though it is that 1 mana. And then again, we need interaction. We need to be able to remove things. Chain of Vapor, I have mixed feelings about. I actually like using it on myself more, and I talked a lot of trash about this card in the past because it does not feel nice to be like, all right, I'm going to go off. I need to go and remove this thing and then just bounce Urza. It just it always gets redirected to me. Seems like it. Batter Golem. When you play this and you have Urza, you cast, and then Batter Golem sees itself. We need to go over that. Batter Golem hits, tap, float a mana, untap. Tap, float 2 mana, use it on artifact, untap. Keep doing that. But cast in response to Batter Golem ETB, I'm going to tap him for a mana. Batter Golem ETB, he's going to untap. And then tap him again, 2 mana. Mystic Forge. Dope. Pay 1, exile the top card of your library. Like, what more do you really want? Sure, it's only artifact spells, but we run like 45 artifacts. And then we run into one of our lands that changes our top deck. Or we run into something and we just exile right off the top, and it keeps us going. You get lucky, you get unlucky, but we can get it from Tezzeret, and it's just 4 colorless, just straight colorless, which is why it's really easy to cast off our Mishra's Workshop. That's the combo. You want to Mishra's into your Mystic. Mishra's into Mystic. Mystic. Workforge. Mystic Workforge. That's what we want. Mystic Workshop. Mishra's Forge. Use those together. Torpor Orb. People are winning out here with their Thoracles. Yeah, it nombos with Urza. We'll talk about one other thing here, but we're trying to get him at the bottleneck. We're trying to get him early. We're trying to discourage him. We're trying to throw out banana peels. We're trying to win the game by throwing out so many little things over here that they're not noticing that we are about to just pop off we're just about to put our whole deck out. And even if they stop us, at that point, we'll have dropped so many Torpors and Aether Spell Bombs and Silent Gravestones and this or that along the way that their game plan looks pretty counterbalanced away. It looks pretty rough. Looks pretty not so fun. Torpor Orb, get them right in the win con. Get them in that Thoracle. We're seeing it all the time right now. Yeah, sure, we don't get our construct, but let's cast it after. The other thing to notice is that the creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger. That's not just the creature ETBs. That also includes like, let's say that we have our, this is the most applicable one. Let's say that we have like a Psi Master Thopterist. We cast an artifact. It creates a Thopter. That's cool. If the artifact that I cast is a creature, Ethereum Sculptor, for example, it will not trigger that Psi Master Thopterist. It will not create the Thopter because it is an artifact entering the battlefield. Wait, is it? Never mind. I'm getting it backwards because I'm not using the right card. Psi is a bad example because it's a cast trigger. What I should use, for example, is Grinding Station. The Grinding Station or Battered Golem, when it enters, whenever an artifact comes into play, you may untap Battered Golem. So if I have the Torpor Orb out and Battered Golem, and I cast Mystic Forge, and this is tapped, Torpor Orb will see the Mystic Forge cast. Battered Golem, whenever you cast an... Oh, no. Okay, so I need not Mystic Forge. I need Sculptor. Okay, so Battered Golem is tapped. I cast Ethereum Sculptor, which is an artifact and a creature. Normally, Battered Golem, whenever an artifact comes into play, you may untap Battered Golem, would see Ethereum Sculptor, see the artifact status, and untap. But instead, creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities, just general abilities to trigger. This is an ability, this is a creature, this is entering, so it doesn't trigger that. That's how that works. It sucks. So yeah, you got a little bit of a nombo going on with the Torpor Orb in this specific case, as well as the Grinding Station case, as well as the Urza Lord High Artificer case with the construct. But Thoracle, ladies and gentlemen, we're not losing to Thoracle anymore. We're not doing that. Not with this on the field. Not with that to protect. Nah, they trying to remove that. Somebody tries to remove that, they know people are going for it. Everybody else is going to be trying to protect that Torpor Orb. Grim Monolith, win with the power artifact every once in a while. Be a positive mana rock. Just what a house of a card. Just get that thing out there and go hard. Pop off. Grim Monolith, reserved list, powerhouse, legend, Aetherflux Reservoir. You are a primary win condition. If you get that out, you can basically just hang this like the sword of Damocles over somebody with a 56 health or something like that after a couple of casts. You don't even have to have the full combo assembled. You just have that reservoir out there, cast a couple of things, and then somebody's about to win, right? You just bloop, zap. Sucks to be them. Don't let Aetherflux resolve if you see an enemy doing it. But guess what? It's our primary win condition. Be careful. Don't have it hanging out there too long. It'll just get destroyed. You'll have to recur it. You'll have to do this. You'll have to do that. But guess what? We have Welding Jar in order to make sure. Isn't it so nice that these cards are like conveniently pretty, like a lot of these have been pretty close to each other to be able to talk about them. We've got our Welding Jar, custom art by Mark Brill. What a gangster, dude. What a gangster. I was like, all right, I want a welding. Here's my welding jar. I'm like, I want an altar art with just a middle finger coming out of it. That's what. And it was kind of a joke when I said it. And he was just like, oh, he just went to it. And I tried to convey the emotion. I'm like, because when I'm using this, I was using a polymorph build at the time. I'm like, I need it to protect my construct because people destroy it all the time when I'm targeting with my polymorph, and I need to sack that welding jar and keep it alive. And I think if it was just like a big middle finger, like, screw you, you're not destroying my construct today. My polymorph is going off. And yeah, he did it. It's a great card. I like it because for whatever reason, things are still getting destroyed. Things that like I still get my artifacts destroyed all the time. It's one of those things where it's just like, oh yeah, that's never going to happen, and then it does. And every single time, I'm like, where's my welding jar? Where is my welding jar? Yeah, we create a lot of problems with our artifacts, so keep them around with your welding jar. We attach a lot of equipment primarily to our construct because it's beefy. Keep it alive with your welding jar. Moonsilver Key. Fetch your Crystal Skull Isu Spyglass with the Moonsilver Key because it gets things with mana abilities. Get the Crystal Skull Isu Spyglass. But also Basalt. That's how we're winning these games is Basalt. Spellskite. Protect your Urza with Spellskite. Interrupt other people's wins with Spellskite. Glaring Fleshraker. Be a backup win condition. That's your job every single time we cast something that is colorless. We're going to create an Eldrazi that's going to do a damage. Okay, that's really nice. So let's say that they Praetor's Grasp our Aetherflux, and we're like, oh my goodness, how do I actually close this game out? We're going to create infinite mana. We are going to cast our defense grid, our conflail, our protection spells, right? And then we are going to put out our glaring fleshraker. We're going to cast that bad boy. And then we're going to cast our Psi Master Thopterist. And then we are going to just cast our artifacts after that. And then every single time we have a colorless spell, we're going to create a couple of like a Thopter, as well as the colorless Eldrazi spawn. That's 2 damage every single cast. That's not many casts with 45. We need to cast less than half of them, right, in order to close out the game as a backup win condition. But also creates a lot of value, assuming they have 40 health, and it creates a lot of value again with those Eldrazi spawns. We have so many artifacts that this is just a house of a card. But again, backup win condition as well. Whir of Invention. I go back and forth, but every time I take you out, I'm like, I just can't justify it, because guess what? 5 mana to go 3, 4, 5, reality chip, deal with it now. That seems really fun. That's a great thing to just have 5 mana to do at the end step of an opponent. Really, really feels nice. It does. Crystal Skull Issue Spyglass. Win me a game. I mean, it has. But it's the underrated one. Everybody's like, why that one? Why that one? I don't think people respect it as much as they should. It allows me to cast my artifacts off the top. 45% of my artifact or my deck is artifacts. A lot of my lands are historic. Yeah. Lightning Greaves. Protect our Urza. Do your duty. And then also give haste to Battered Golem and Valley Floodcaller in case Retraction Helix happens to pop up for a nice little win session. Witness Protection, just 1 mana, just cast off the top, just smack, or just have it early game. It's not an instant, it's not, but 1 mana interaction is just so primo. Is it worth it to have 1 more colorless on there and then run a Resculpt, and then be able to exile and then also hit artifacts and be instant speed? A lot of people would say yes. I say no. Because guess what? We're over here casting off the top. We're trying to be skinny with it. We're trying to not spend that much mana. We're trying to hit Mox Opals. And then when we don't hit a Mox Opal, we hit a Witness Protection, and it only costs 1 instead of 2. Because we didn't want to cast that thing anyway. Valley Floodcaller. Again, win me a game sometime. Again, the tech is cool. Sometimes it pops up. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you're drawing it off to it's your 7th card and you've got 6 really good cards in hand, and you're just in your opening hand and you're just like, be a land, and then it's a Valley Floodcaller and you're just like, I need to cut this card. We talked about Lion's Eye Diamond in other videos. Quick rundown. Basically, really cool to be. I'm gonna cast Lion's Eye Diamond, get a Thopter, get an Eldrazi spawn, get a Clue, and then I'm going to tap it for a blue, and then I'm going to sack it, and I don't have anything in hand anyway, so I have 4 blue, and then I'm going to I'm going to continue doing my thing. Mox Diamond, whatever. Every once in a while, why are you upside down over here? Mox Diamond, every once in a while, it's like I only get the cast trigger, but if I'm casting off the top and it's just a Mox Diamond and I get a cast trigger, I get a Thopter, but it doesn't hurt my feelings if it doesn't hit the board, because again, I'm just right on to the next card. And then that early game velocity, I run 25 lands, but every once in a while we hit a 3-lander and it's really nice, or a 2-lander, and it's nice to just get that velocity. It's like I'll go down a card to get that early game velocity. Jeweled Amulet, underrated. Get that early game velocity. Just plant a blue mana right in that thing. And then turn 2, get another land drop, and you got 3 right there. And then maybe you just spend those 2 on your Spellskite, and then turn 3, you've got 1, 2, 3 if you hit your land drop, and then you've got your 4 planted. Boop, 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 boop. You got your Spellskite, you got your Construct, you're going to tap those, and you got Urza Protection, you got 2 mana to do some shenanigans with. Oh, well, what if it's a reality chip? Man, now you're really cooking. You drop your reality chip, and you got the Cracked Hand. Tap that reality chip for something. I don't know, maybe a Graveyard Hate piece. Let's put a Silent Gravestone out there. What are you going to do now, guys? I got a spell skite. I've got no cards in hand. Who cares? Because next turn I'm about to untap, attach that reality chip to my construct, and we're just going to do. Away we go. Because that's the turn 4. That's the flow. Turn 1, prep. Turn 2, protect. Turn 3, cast Urza. Turn 4, top deck and win. Pongify, in French. Transmute. We just like went over the top of that. We just went over the top of that. Sack effects. You know, it's like there's a whole bunch of things that we can tap and then sack and then just not miss later. So who cares? And then we need to be able to get our reducers, our Sensei's top. It's like 3 mana. So it's just 2 blue. So 2 blue and then sack a one cost artifact, which we have plenty of, in order to get your top, is like, that's a top tier tutor in my opinion. At least it feels like it. Pongify. I would like a primo version of this. I bought a French thing of Time Spiral because I wanted to pull some French delays, and instead for my bachelor's party gifts, got this. I would like to get a bling one, but 1 mana, get rid of target creature. Urza Saga, what a card! Shouldn't have been printed. Just what a pairing! What a pairing! Looking good, guys. Doing well. Urza Saga, go get me my Sensei's top. That's what you're here for. Basalt, premier win condition. Isn't it weird how we, as Urza players, like in our poly, like we didn't used to run Basalt? Yeah, like that long ago. Like I remember original variations just didn't have it. Like it's not a mana positive rock. Why would you have it? Grinding Station, underrated card. I never used like the sack effect. It's literally only there to be like, all right, Grinding Station ETB sees itself, tap, untap, flow to mana, tap again, 2 mana, just went even. And then everything you cast after that just creates mana. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I like it. Reality Chip, Premier, top deck caster of the deck. It's tutorable. It only costs 2, so we can do it in chunks. It taps for mana. We can reconfigure it. It's no longer a creature after that point, so it can't be removed like a Magus. It casts anything. It doesn't have any conditions to cast anything, like the Fortune Teller's Talent. It just does a lot of things really well. And it's a 0/4 blocker, which is kind of funny. People are just like, okay, I'm going to cast this turn, to usually not turn 1 because of that blue pip. It prevents the turn 1 cast most of the time. And then they'll attack or something with a Ragavan and be like, it's a jellyfish, but it is a creature. It's a legendary artifact creature equipment jellyfish, I know that it's kind of hard to see, but I know. Conflail, any port in a storm, protect our win conditions. It taps because it's an artifact and it's an equipment, which makes it more valuable than it was designed to actually be initially. And I think it's a pretty decent card. Got an island and then a new ad. The repurposing bay is pretty cool. I found that I'm wanting to sacrifice 0 costs in order to get my Sensei's top. That's what I'm repurposing for. That seems to be the pattern. All right, so we went over every single card. I can feel my brain going to mush. We've been talking about Urza at this point for a long time. And I should go say hi to the wife and the dog and do real life things for a little bit and upload this. If you have questions, go to the Urza Discord that's linked down in the description, and then we can talk all about this. If you have suggestions, if you're like, oh my goodness, you're running this card and it should be this card because you must just not know about it, please let me know. I don't want to be wrong any longer than I have to. Yeah, cool. Hope you learned something. And I will see you next time on cEDH Unhinged. Oh, low battery. I got to get rid of that low battery thing first. Close. iPhone remains findable after power on. Okay. Let me stop the video, guys. Come on.